Hello and welcome back to Sinews of War. In the last episode we saw Nassau fighting with Louisiana's main force. It took him slightly by surprise, attacking him from two sides, but he was able to win out with some moderate casualties. The enemy had lots of survivors, but we could bring them down by attacking their last settlement, so that we did with a slightly weakened army, able to overcome the enemy's low morale garrison quite easily. But right after that, Spain ended our peace treaty and declared war on us once again, so this was very dangerous. Their first move was to attack Florida with an army that looked like it would easily overpower the defenders inside, but we did have an artillery fort, and the enemy threw away their cavalry and artillery advantages and threw away the numerical advantage in terms of infantry, attacking in a way that entirely suited our defensive plan. So now they've only got a limited number of infantry left. They're going to struggle to take this fort. Let's see how it continues. No effect, sir.
Reload.
Are you sure, sir?
Reload, you treacherous dog. I will not let these guns lie quiet while this heathen planet still remains whole.
Oh, okay, sir. Firing again. Primed. Ready. Fire.
Yes, yes. Feel my wrath.
We just hit the hill again, sir.
Good. Good. Soon my plan will be complete.
Shouldn't we move the guns on top of the hill, sir? We'd be able to see the whole of the enemy fort.
What is this cowardice I am hearing? You think a hill can stop me? You think that the will of God cannot be crushed by the power of man? I will reduce this hill to a mere mote of dust, and then, with the path for my ambition cleared, we will see the enemy quiver in fear as they learn how Earth itself falls before my power.
Oh, right. Yes, I think I understand, sir.
Understand it well, mere mortal. For soon the whole universe will shake under the relentless pounding of the Dark Artillery Lord.
Dark what now, sir?
Your soul is now forfeit.
Oh. Well, that can't be good. Nevertheless, I guess orders are orders. Keep the guns aligned with the hillside, boys, and fire off the rest of the shot. Don't worry, the Major has a plan, it seems. If you have a rosary on you, perhaps keep it close at hand. Welcome back to the defense of our Floridian fort, where you can see the enemy trying to make one last-ditch attack with these irregulars. I'm responding by putting my archers and line infantry into melee against them. If we can take down this line infantry unit, they won't have a way to open the gates. Well, unless they use their artillery, but they're very unlikely to do it, given the artillery are very busy destroying a nearby hill. So I noticed that for some reason, some of my line infantry had decided to actually go down one of the ropes and fight the enemy outside the fort. Not 100% sure what their motivation was, but I decided to see whether this was a good idea at all. They managed to kill one guy, so that was good. But now they're totally surrounded by the enemy. One guy gets knocked down and his two friends are immediately killed by just being smacked to the neck or something, or having heart attacks. And the last guy is now going to get up to find himself in a little bit of a pickle. I thought maybe he could go on to actually kill some of these enemies, but he faces the same fate. So those three made a big mistake. The rest of his unit, luckily, decided to stay up on the wall and fight the enemy here. The enemy's numbers now dropping rapidly, so they're going to start wavering, and with only a few men left and our numerical advantage being so large, we are definitely going to take them out. So that's put us in a very secure position. Most of the enemy's remaining troops are cavalry. One of those units was sitting on the back corner of the fort. I wondered what it was doing, and I thought I might as well go over and just shoot at it while we wait for the battle timer to run down. So I'm doing just that, the enemy not really responding, getting some cheeky shots and gradually depleting the numbers of those light cav, but I don't think they've noticed, or if they have noticed they don't care, so that's handy for me. I actually noticed this unit was taking damage from something. You can see some bodies on the floor and I thought, why are we taking losses? Are we shooting ourselves? But then I noticed that little artillery shot come in. I think the enemy firing at the hill at the back of the map sometimes fire over the top of it, and the shots land somewhere over here, and every now and again they're actually hitting my men, and because I just sat there on fast forward for 10 minutes, they actually did get a couple of hits. So my unit's going to run back to the other side of the fort. This guy didn't necessarily hear the order. Unfortunately, he is just going to chill out here. I really like the fact that he also keeps looking around as if wondering where the rest of his unit actually is, but I guess he's just deaf or otherwise glued to the floor. Now let's check out that unit of cavalry. I wanted to see what it was actually doing. It seemed to be moving away from the fort, and as you can see, they are doing some little physics-defying moves. I have no idea what's wrong with this unit, but as you can see, it's messed up. And let me take this chance to remind you that Empire Total War is available for purchase right now. It is at least sold as a complete game, but it does have a number of issues, as we've seen in this battle, and there's one of them. So they're just going to shuffle away awkwardly. I'm not sure where they're going. The artillery still pounding the hill, there it is, and their general, who I also wanted to check out, is sitting at the back of the map. It looks like he was trying to leave, but has got stuck on the line, so not 100% sure what the general's doing either. They do have one unit which is being a bit more sensible. These tribal auxiliaries, they're still shuffling, but they are at least playing a movement animation for the shuffle, so it doesn't look so weird. But overall, right now, the enemy can't do anything to get inside the fort unless they move their artillery, as I said, but they're not going to, so I literally just have to wait half an hour for the battle to end, and finally there it is. The timer runs out and we win by default with a heroic victory. So that was not expected when the battle started. The enemy had so many advantages and had an army that was quite able to bring down fort defenses, but they just didn't use it. So they ended up losing 3 times as many as we did and not taking the fort. Some very nice kills from our men there. The tribal auxiliaries doing a lot of damage, so very nice from them. The mortars doing virtually nothing because they missed for the entire battle. The enemy were too close and it just didn't work, as discussed in the previous episode. Another war with Spain. Fantastic. I wonder if they send out spies before they declare these wars. One would assume not, for the competence needed to organise such matters is far greater than that needed to move your armies to the battlefront before the war starts, and they have failed that. A main force in Gibraltar, an unguarded capital, and here in my own little corner is poor old Milan, full of overfed militia. We'll take them, no issues there. The question is rather who will march on Madrid. I think most of the stat holders will be in favour of one of their own pet commanders. Let's keep an eye out. Any news of the army from the north setting out must reach me even before it reaches Amsterdam. Understood? With no other attacks from Spain in that in-turn sequence, it's now time for us to start organising counterattacks, and the first thing we're going to want to do is get Nassau and his men together to move out. We have a really bad public order situation in Louisiana, so I had to work out some arrangement where I could leave without guaranteeing a rebellion, and I eventually got something together. We can't actually reach Florida in one turn, so that means Spain is going to have a chance to attack again if they like. They still have quite a lot of forces there. I think they've been building up even more during that in-turn sequence. They've got loads of units, more units coming in from the west. So overall, Florida is still in a dangerous position if the AI can get its act together and find a way to attack that fort properly. Now, right on the other side of the world in the East Indies, I remember there's a Spanish trade fleet, and there it is, consisting in part of ships taken from my own trade fleets in the previous war with Spain. So this is going to be a concern because they can come over and attack Admiral Duven and his own trade fleet right here. So I thought the first thing we'll try is just getting all of these ships together, because combined we actually have quite a few ships here. So I put them all into one fleet, and we're going to have that fleet go and challenge the Spanish trade fleet. Now what we find is that it's an even engagement. I was expecting myself to have a little bit of an advantage, but the enemy's ships are just simply better than mine and superior in terms of their firepower, so that's probably why it's evened out. Now I really didn't want to fight an even battle, because even battles is how you lose ships, and because they're expensive and slow to replace, that's kind of why we've never really built up a proper fleet here on the east part of the map. So I tried to disengage from the battle, but I forgot that if you do that, it actually makes your navy go insane and just retreat into the corners of the map. So now they are going to be vulnerable to the Spanish fleet. It could just go and attack them, although it technically shouldn't know that my fleet is there, but that's not really how the AI works. So we're going to start building more ships over there in Ceylon to try and get a force together to take the East Indies by storm. Before any of that, I'm looking at Milan. Since we're now at war with Spain and have an army right next to it, we might as well take this opportunity for Voss to expand his little Italian territories even more. So I'm getting all of my forces together to go and lay siege to the town. They've got a pretty powerful force inside, at least according to the balance bar. They even have an artillery advantage, but most of their infantry are militia, whereas most of ours are professional troops. So we're going to have the straight up infantry advantage in a close quarters fight, so that is useful. I was wondering if I could siege them out, but you can see the public order situation so bad that waiting around to make this attack is going to cause some problems. So what we really should do is just make the assault right now. We do have that key infantry advantage and we have cavalry advantage, so I'm confident that we can defy that balance bar and get a really good result. So the battle itself is actually quite advantageous for us to start with, because we deploy on this massive hill overlooking the town where my guns can just fire down at whatever they want. The enemy though have kind of the same thing going on. Although their guns are out in the open on the flats here, their main army is moving to the back of the map where there's another set of hills and cliffs for them to defend, and I'm the attacker, so I'm going to have to go to them in theory. But of course with their guns exposed like this, we might be able to turn that around, because in Empire's AI scripts, whichever side has the artillery advantage becomes the defender. So the enemy's going to start firing at me. I'm going to have to get out of the way of their artillery shots. I could wait for ages and try and get my demi-cannons to take their demi-cannons down, but it's so unlikely to ever actually happen, it's not worth it. I'm going to move my infantry behind this ridge to protect them from artillery fire, and then take half of my cav all together to go and just run at the enemy's artillery. The enemy's mortars are going to open up as we get close, and they do get several hits, but luckily cavalry are slightly less vulnerable to mortar fire than infantry because of their more spaced out formation. So we are going to be able to charge all the way across, and because the infantry of the enemy are so far back from their artillery position, they really can't support this position if I attack it. So that means as my cav come in, they're not going to be taking any gunfire, they're going to be really high on morale, and they're going to just cut through these artillery crews absolutely no problem. So we've got the engagement. After just a few seconds, those artillery crews will be dead and their pieces destroyed in some cases. So now it's up to the enemy's infantry to react. So I'm going to watch them. They do start moving forwards, and that means we can't hang around. I'm going to order my cav to get out of there as soon as possible to make sure we don't take even a single volley, try and maximise the men we get away from this. So the enemy's artillery have luckily already been totally defeated. You can see there the horses towing away their ammunition supplies, the guns now abandoned, and most of the crew dead by the looks of it. So that means that in this battle we now have the artillery advantage, and as I said, that means the AI will change its strategy and try to attack me. First, it has to move across the map, and that's actually going to prove quite difficult because this map is scattered with little pieces of impassable terrain, like those little grey rocks you can just about see there, which are for some reason impassable to infantry, and that completely screws the pathfinding. You can see they're advancing in single file as a result, starting to get their act together. The enemy actually going for a two-pronged advance, some of them advancing across the fields over here and others advancing through the town itself, but the ones going through the fields are going to arrive much sooner because they're moving much quicker. I'm preparing a defensive position to receive them. I'm going to try and keep my hill position so I have a little advantage there, and interestingly on my left flank was a wall, so I can use that to stop the enemy from coming around the edge very easily. So as the enemy get closer, our line begins to take pot shots at them. See, we're quite far up compared to the enemies. It's going to take them a long time if they want to run up and get in close to us. But right now they're not interested in that. They're actually going to walk up and down in front of us, which is very nice. Here you can see I've got some conscripts on the wall, the first use of conscripts. Unfortunately, I didn't notice when I was playing that they're actually sitting, some of them, right in front of the line infantry. We were shooting them in the back. They're supposed to be shooting over the top of them, but they're not that accurate, unfortunately, so we are hitting our own men. So that is not very useful, but the rest of the conscripts are going to have an easy time at shooting these enemy units as they just stroll up into range. I was interested in the fact that the enemy, while also not waiting for reinforcements, is also not really particularly interested in making an assault. They're in this weird halfway house where they're really slowly walking up the hill towards us as if they want to attack, but maybe not too quickly, as if they were waiting for other support to help them. But anyway, what happened is they walked up to our line, got shot, and ran away. So that was pretty much exactly what we could have asked for. That's going to go our way very nicely. Of course, while that happened, the rest of the enemy supporting units arrived. All these units Looks like they're just making some sort of chaotic attack, moving through each other, so we're going to keep shooting at them. They're in trouble though because the other half of their army is still at the back of the map. They went into the town, then decided they weren't going to go through the town and came back out to the back of the map where the hills are. So right now the army is split in two, one half engaging our line, the other half doing nothing. And the only casualties we're really taking is from friendly fire and the edge of that conscript unit, which I still haven't noticed because I'm usually playing from a really zoomed out perspective, and on these misty weather conditions you can't really see what's going on very well. But it doesn't really matter. The enemy's casualties are going to be immense as they make these moves. This unit, walking over this wall into the field, suddenly decides it's not going to go that way and comes back in the other direction. Not 100% sure where they're going with this. It's possible that they spotted the fact I had militia on this wall up here and decided they weren't going to bother advancing around this flank. The militia, though, still going to get plenty of chances to shoot at them because the enemy reversed that decision once more and do come back into this field the militia are guarding. So the militia will now unleash fire on this unit. Now the extra curious point was that the unit doesn't stop or attempt to engage the militia. The ideal thing probably would be to go for a melee charge if they want to attack the corner of my line at all, but they're actually just sort of trotting past, and it was at this point I realised what was actually going on here. Those enemy units are still trying to engage my cavalry. That's why they're just walking in front of my line, because they targeted the cavalry back with my cavalry in front of them and are still targeting them after they've run across the map. So I thought, well, if they want to fight the cavalry, then let's do it. The cavalry are behind a little ridge, meaning they can advance and suddenly pop into the line of sight of the militia. The militia won't get a chance to fire because they only just saw those cavalry, and the cavalry now engage them in melee. That causes a rout pretty much straight away, and now that unit's in big trouble. It loses half its men in a matter of seconds, that number dropping so fast, being absolutely annihilated there, and basically the fate of that unit isn't going to be too different to the fate of the rest of their comrades.
Ik krijg het alleen ook koud door hier gewoon te staan. Gaan we de vijand niet aanvallen? Kijk eens naar de linkerzijde, helemaal bedekt met rook. Er is daar wel iets aan de hand. Waarom zijn we aan het wachten op deze ijskoude heuvel? We kunnen de stad innemen. Of de vijand uitmanoeuvreren. Of we kunnen gewoon terug naar het kamp gaan. Zo zijn we gewoon nutteloos, weet je? Ik denk dat de generaal zo'n spel met ons aan het spelen is. Hij houdt al zijn goede soldaten in de reserve. Waarschijnlijk om te zien wat er gebeurt. Hij laat alleen die verdomde militie in de splitgevechten. Hij is geobsedeerd met de tijdelijke soldaten. Hij heeft geen respect voor de waardigheid van ons regiment. Als ik 1 regiment dichterbij was, zat ik nu midden in de actie. Ik krijg mijn glorie. Zelfs als ik die stomme dienstplichtige in de rug moet schieten.
Since most of the battle is basically taking place exclusively on the left flank, I'm advancing it out a little bit and taking up more positions with more men so we can get more fire on the enemy. So here, some militia taking up a position behind that stone wall to bombard the enemy's militia, who themselves only have a wooden fence to protect themselves, so we should win in that ranged battle. These 2 units next door decide not to take part in that fight. They're going to come out onto the flank here, where I guess they thought they might get a chance to go around us, but actually they're going to find that this ridge in front of them is going to have the same trap we saw the militia fall for earlier, where right behind that ridge are awaiting all of my regiments of cavalry. I'm trying to just keep them out of sight, but the enemy are determined to find them and engage them in melee. But of course, this is the ideal situation for a cavalry charge, because although it's going to be slow because it's uphill, once they come over the top, the enemy don't have any chance to fire at them before the impact actually happens. So you can do the charge without taking any fire, and then once in melee, the militia are so poor in terms of their melee stats that you can take them out for virtually no losses with a melee cav unit. So that's all fine. We're going to let them keep fighting on. The units nearby, now isolated, going to have to do a gun battle with multiple units from my side, with my units being in cover as well, so that's going to be delightful. There goes those militia routing off the field, and the routers will be instantly defeated by the pursuing cav. The cav can then come in to attack those units that were distracted by firing into my concealed units. So that's going quite well. Another unit of militia sent off the field. As you can tell, this battle is getting easier and easier as my cavalry advantage just keeps coming in useful. I'm still extending out the left flank even more to get more gunners over here, because the enemy are now sending everything towards that left flank. Their general, if you're wondering, is sitting at the back of the map, still on that hill from where they were at the start. And I wondered what it would look like for the general to see this battle going on, so we'll do this little zoom. So if he had a telescope and was looking over at the action, he would see a lot of smoke and chaos and a lot of horses marauding around the place, pace, going into his lines and causing chaos as his reserves still move into that meat grinder. And if he looked over to the side, he would see that most of Voss's army is not even engaged because it's not required for this fight. We're literally fighting this with 3 units of cav and 3 units of infantry. Anyway, that general then notices, that I've actually been sneaking my right wing of cavalry round to the back of the town. So we're now going to charge at each other. I'll have a slight disadvantage and I'm going to charge somewhat uphill towards the enemy. Well, actually the enemy kind of giving up the hill advantage there, and the general going to have trouble just because he can't defeat 3 units of cav on his own. He's going to try and he dies within about 2 seconds, so not an ideal decision from the enemy's commander there. So those cavalry will now quite rapidly just finish off the general's bodyguard and can come into a rear attack the rest of the enemy's forces. So at this point I decided let's just end this battle. All cav from the back, charge everywhere and just hit everything you can, even if it risks getting shot, and it worked out pretty well. The enemy's trailing unit was their line infantry, their best units. They never actually got to use those line infantry for any line battling, which is what they're best at. And at the front, their last few units of militia going to take a charge as well. I'm not going to bother waiting for them to come up and do a gun battle with my position. We're just going to engage them straight up, and that works like a charm. The battle soon comes to an end. So the results, we lost just under 200, the enemy losing a touch under 3,000. So an absolutely abysmal performance from the Spanish, and you can see from the kill counts here that our cavalry units doing absolutely insane damage, taking almost no damage to themselves, unfortunately not actually leveling up, which I thought was a bit cheeky considering how well they did. So right now the Spanish army in Milan is in a state of obliteration.
The way the journals put it makes it all seem rather tiresome, but they are not the source of the blame. They curse the wars because that is what the common people are doing. A decade of war has given them something to complain about, even though we've won them all. Ordinarily not a problem, but when they elect a new bunch of secretaries into office every 2 years, it hardly gives a chance for any of them to achieve anything. Something tells me they don't understand how disruptive all this democracy is. I'd rather think it might be better to restore the stability of our nation with a little permanent reshuffling. The States General is not suited to ruling a global domain, but a king, that would do just fine.
So our win there brings Milan under our control. We need to get it repaired right away. We are going to have some public order issues now because, of course, we need to spread our forces across these 3 different regions, all of which are quite angry with the whole situation. Eventually find a setup that kind of covers everything. Not everyone totally happy, but we're going to recruit some more militia troops to spread around as well, and we should be able to stabilize northern Italy there soon enough. Now next up, we need to start reacting to the position of the Spanish main force, which is here in Gibraltar, and we're going to do the exact same thing we did last time, because in the previous war they were here as well. We just blockaded the nearby ports. We're going to do that again. We can't actually blockade that second port because it's not occupied, meaning all we can do is occupy it ourselves, which is actually worse than blockading it, because the enemy can just kick us out and then launch a fleet out of it anyway. So the main force is there. It's not a particularly powerful looking force, but we know it's in a weird position with regards to where we are. So what I'm going to do is be provocative. I'm just going to start moving our main force from Europe, which has been reinforced with extra units, led by this new guy, Gaydon, who's completely unremarkable as commander. He has the basic level of stats, no traits, and no abilities to make him good as a general. So really just someone who was thrown in to act as leader, and Voss is not happy about this. He, seeing that an invasion of Spain is going on, is going to try and catch up with it so that he can join in as well. Will mean the public order deteriorates slightly here in Genoa, but not going to be a big issue. So let's see if the Spanish have anything up their sleeves to counter my moves. They push my fleet out of those docks near Gibraltar, and they also have attacks they seem to be making near Louisiana in America, so that could be interesting. They have more troops there than I originally thought. My invasion towards Madrid is just going to continue. Their main force didn't move. Really hard to select Voss behind these British armies, which for some reason refuse to leave my territory. They've been there since the days of this being part of France. Not sure what they're up to. Anyway, Voss nearly catches up with the army. He can walk right up next to it. Next time he'll be able to join it for the attack. Now, I noticed the Spanish have actually really rapidly captured parts of America. They've conquered some of the Native American territories, so they now actually have 3 regions here. And I guess that's why they have all these armies coming out from all directions, including lots of Native American troops. 1 unit of bowmen on their own there, nothing too much to worry about. Nassau is probably just going to ignore those men behind him. We've got enough troops still in Louisiana that they probably can't take it if they made an attack. I'm going to throw in some more line infantry just to make sure, and maybe just form this into a second army on its own, so we can have 2 armies in the Americas. That'll probably make things easier. The enemy will have a chance to take my port there, which will deny me some income if they were to do that, and there's not much I can do without sending forces out of Louisiana to occupy it, but then I would lose public order, so it's hard to say what to do here, and since the port isn't worth a huge amount to me right now, we're just going to ignore it and see what the Spanish do. Nassau is going to move right up to the border with Georgia, where the Spanish have their main force, and he's going to be reinforced from these troops I've been recruiting in Florida, including some extra artillery and lots of native troops as well. So he now actually has the full 20 units in his army, just needs to replenish some of them to get to full strength. So he's going to have a nice powerful force to face off against the Spanish. The Spanish still outnumber him, but I think their forces might be just a little bit worse. Duvet, unfortunately, was not attacked over the end turn sequence, so that's great. He's going to be able to slip back towards India to start increasing the power of his fleet, so that's handy. The Spanish have a fleet out on the water in the Mediterranean, and they move an army to go towards it when it docks there at Sicily, so they might be planning to do a naval invasion somewhere. Their forces in America don't go for Louisiana. They seem to be focusing down on Florida, but they're going to arrive too late, I think. And now Prussia have a deal for me. They want trade. I have to give them a technology to get this trade, apparently. I wondered whether I should, since they're at war with Britain, my closest ally, but I decided I would go for this because the potential profits will be massive, and hopefully Britain just won't mind too much that it's only trade. We've had another election, so another reshuffle of our sets of ministers and secretaries, changing all of the global buffs and penalties. Not a particularly good set this time. I'm going to have a quick look through and possibly shuffle some of them around. I noticed the Navy and Army ministers might be better suited if they were swapped around thanks to their personality traits. So we get a slight improvement to our army management there. Overall, not a particularly good cabinet. We had much better ones before. So now, Voss catches up with the army, takes command from that generic guy, Gaydon, and now he can just pull the army right over to Madrid, where we see there's no army inside and 1 unit outside. A very vulnerable situation for the Spanish. Just before that, I wanted to check out what's going to happen in the Americas. Nassau is going to besiege Georgia. There's a full stack inside. I thought I might as well be patient and try and siege them out here. The other Spanish army could do damage, but I'm probably going to get that second army out to try and stop them pretty soon, so I'm not worried about that. Over in India, we learned that Grasdak, our minister, is getting a little bit tired of the difficulty of trying to convert on this very tropical climate, but he's doing well. We've got almost 20% Protestantism there in southern India, and Ceylon itself very Protestant, so we have started spreading the good word, and we're going to have to keep doing that if we want a chance of holding down the region in the future. So let's jump back to Spain. Voss moves in. I attacked this 1 unit. I thought the garrison might come out to join this fight, but it doesn't. So we'll just auto-resolve that 1 regiment away. So now Voss, as well as getting that handy level up, is totally free to just attack Madrid. The Spanish army, possibly more than 1 turn's march away. I'm not 100% sure. I think they might be able to attack in 1 turn, but just to be safe, we really want to make this attack right now. The enemy does have artillery forts, but we have artillery, so we can try and destroy the fort and not take too much damage on the attack. Even if we do take damage, the benefit of being inside the fort ourselves for when the Spanish counterattack will hopefully make any loss of life worth it. So we will see this dangerous assault in the next episode. Throwing the Spanish administration into sudden chaos with their lightning advance on Madrid, the Dutch saw a war with France appearing to repeat itself. The Spanish trade expeditions to the Americas were over, and the produce of the East Indies was unable to sail through the large stretches of hostile waters, not to mention the blockaded ports. Their troops were in disarray, lacking the logistics to muster in time to join the opening attacks of the war. Rapidly, their only way out of the conflict was to put pressure on the Dutch-American colonies and negotiate a peace that left Spain itself intact. But to do that, they would need to overcome an economy that spanned the world and the army of expert General Hendrik van Nassau. Thanks for watching. We'll try to punish Spain for their betrayal of us next time in Sinews of War.